Good morning, welcome. I'm very excited to see you all. I've seen a few of you already or actually probably a majority of you at this point in the orientation sessions. For those of you who I haven't met, welcome to I-Corps. My name is Magali Eaton and I lead this program along with Ken Meyer, who should be up at the top as well. He's our lead instructor. And you'll see two more people on the call, Karen Lakin and Devin Bacon, who are doing the back end of the event. They are head of IT and our head of events. So we'll be working with them throughout and making sure that you'll have a good experience. We're very excited to have you here. You're here because the statistics show that almost half the startups or half the people who try to build startups end up building something that people don't want or don't want enough to purchase and to really make a business out of it, which is really sad because that's a lot of work. And so that's why I-Corps was created, is really to help you talk to the folks that you think you're serving to make sure that whatever you're building, you're adapting it to them so that you're building something people want. And if there is no need for the idea that you have, which happens once in a while, and that's okay, then you identify this very early before you put in a ton of work into this and you can move on to your next great idea. So that's why this program, and that's what we're going to try to do with you throughout the cohort. This is just a reminder of how the cohort flows for those of you who might not have seen it. We are right now at the kickoff workshops on the left. After today and tomorrow, where you're going to have a lot of frameworks thrown at you, you're going to have kind of the skills to get started and go interview a whole bunch of your customers or people in your ecosystem. And to help you throughout, we have boot camps running every week. We have two sets of them. One that is the cross industries boot camps, that's for everyone. And then a second one that is specialized in the health sciences. So for those who have biomedical innovations, you can participate into both. You can participate into either one that is of interest to you if you want to make a choice, and everybody else. No matter what, on Tuesday mornings, we're having a boot camp that will be relevant for you guys. So please use that. Mid-February, the cohort will finish with a final pitch, and the boot camps should be helping you build your pitch as you go and get feedback on your slide deck, get feedback on your interviewing. Because you will be interviewing, you have an objective of interviewing 5 customers every week for a total of 25 by the end of the program.
Morning, Tanya.
And in early March is when we're going to be switching to the mini grant. So you're going to have to write a grant proposal if you are seeking one of the mini grants, and a grant committee will get together and decide who gets the grants based on that. And this, to the right-hand side, is just a few of the options that are available to you all after the program. As the program evolves, we'll talk about them all. I'm also going to put you on the mailing list to keep you updated on what's coming up in the ecosystem, and that will help you just know, and just ping me if you have an interest in any of the follow-ups that are available to you. If you have any questions at any point during the program, please do not hesitate to shoot an email to the I-Corps email you have in front of you here. This email will allow the team, the whole team monitors it, so one of us will get back to you if you need any help on anything. And with that, I will switch it over to Ken. Although, Ken, do we want to make an announcement again on numbers, maybe just before?
Well, thanks, Magali, and hi, everybody. Again, my name is Ken Meyer, and I'm just thrilled to be working with you this morning. Quite a bit of work goes into putting these sessions together, as you can imagine. 3-hour Zoom calls are super tough, so I'm going to do some talking, but then you're going to pretty much be working most of the time in workrooms. I'm going to set things up and then put you in rooms and have you work on your thinking regarding your innovation. Big kudos go to Terry Butler and Magali and Karen and Devin, who really have worked tirelessly over the last several weeks to put this together. This is the largest cohort we've had, and we would call this version 2.0 of our I-Corps work, because the content has been revised, and we're now having this platform called Innovation Within that people can use to speculate on the business that they think they might want to build, as well as capture interviews and insights. So this is kind of Rev 2 of I-Corps. We're going to have two sessions, one today, one tomorrow. Today we're talking about the lean business model and thinking, how you need to think about at the core developing a really powerful value proposition if you want to create a business, and to get you thinking about what you want to really focus on in the coming weeks in terms of your customer discovery work, as we call it, this work to go out and talk to people. Out being a loose term, since it'll likely be mostly through Zoom sessions. So here's the topics for today. Get you understanding, and this today is for folks who maybe have not been introduced to this concept before or who need a refresher on it. The whole concept of lean thinking in terms of how you approach the development of a new business, looking at the customer segments you might want to serve, picking a customer segment and going deep to understand who is in that customer segment, because you're not just serving one individual, one buyer, one user, you're entering a whole world, and being cognizant of that is important. Getting super empathetic in your mindset to learn the jobs and the challenges and the hopes of that customer, so that you are building to that, not to what you believe they want to have in their lives, but really building to what they need and desire. And then having that come together in what's called a value proposition. And then we'll end up with you really kind of solidifying what's the hypothesis you want to go test during this 6 weeks or so that we'll be together. Tomorrow, we'll go deeper on how you actually go out, find people, plan for a good conversation, execute a good conversation with people, capture what you've learned. And then kind of a secondary topic, which is not quite related to this, but how do you tell an effective business story? You're going to be talking a lot about your story, whether it's to people who you want to have join your team or you want to raise money from or otherwise. Telling an effective business story is super important. We're going to actually have a whole hour on this, hour plus, as one of the boot camps. But what we're going to do tomorrow is to teach you and give you a practice at kind of a pitch. The 1 minute, 30 second to 1 minute pitch you want to be prepared to tell somebody. So that's it. Then we got these boot camps. Terry's We Reach team is running the biomedical boot camps. The team here is running the other boot camps. We'll have guest speakers, some super guest speakers, really respected folks in the industry who are very experienced working with young companies. So the approach, just real quick again, short lectures, key concepts, throw you in a room, have you exercise those concepts. I think it's important to think about the next 2 days. The goal is not to come up with the answers in the next 2 days about what kind of business you want to create. The goal is to really surface the questions and your initial thinking about the elements of a business you might create, so that you're prepared to go out and have really good conversations with folks out. So I would say the key focus for the next couple of days is get the concepts and get your thinking out on the innovation within platform, so you then in the coming weeks can work it. Want to thank very much the mentors who have joined us. Really appreciate that they would give their volunteer time to do this. My advice to all the teams is to engage them through the innovation within platform, which allows you to chat with each other, allows the mentors and you to actually do comments on sections of your thinking. When you do come to them, come prepared with the questions you have, but leave time for it to go, the conversation to go where it needs to go. Help them understand what you're learning from these interviews. Ask them to look at the materials you put together, and then if you can, give them as much notice as possible, because they are, like you, super busy. As I know you are well aware, there is a workbook and a set of PowerPoint templates. I will take you through over the next 2 days all the things you need to do, but the workbook is a good reference. And the PowerPoint templates, you're going to use some of them during these next 2 sessions, but a bunch of the stuff will be done on this platform called Innovation Within. I've already seen that a lot of you have gotten in there and are already building your first lean canvas and throwing your hypotheses down. That's terrific. And this is a pretty powerful tool to hypothesize about what you think you want to go work on, to capture your insights, to look at videos that are all about doing early stage work, to chat with each other and so forth. So if you haven't watched the video, which we had asked you to do as a preparatory for this workshop this morning about what the Lean Canvas is, there's a link to it on YouTube. It's about 20 minutes long, really well worth doing. So you get a sense, but I'll take you through this as well this morning. So when you get into these breakout rooms that we throw you into, one person should either share the PowerPoint template or share their innovation within screen, and then the rest of you will work. And I know that in some cases, there's just one team member and a mentor. So you're going to be working with each other, but one person should share their screen while you all work on the assignment that we've given you. Let me see here. Before I go forward, is there any questions? You can throw them into the chat screen. I've got it up here before we get moving. We put the workbook and we put the PowerPoint templates into a link to it in the chat. Okay, well, let's get going. The first subject is really this concept about lean thinking and efficient, smart, market-oriented approaches to how you dream up a potential new business. You know, we used to believe that small companies were just smaller, startups were just basically smaller versions of big companies, right? But what we've really learn and understand now is that they're two very different animals. Startups are searching, companies are executing, right? Companies have an established customer base that they're either seeking to expand or to provide more offerings to. Startups are in the searching business. They're trying to see if there's some business to be had. And that implies a very different mindset for how you go think about a business. The old strategy was you did a lot of work in advance, right? You basically put a business plan together and put some financial spreadsheets together, and you did a lot of work in advance. When it comes to startup thinking, it's much more iterative and market-based versus you sitting in a room figuring things out. So lean involves not creating business plans, which you will do as you move forward, of course, but really seeing if you can discover a business model. They're the necessary elements to put together a business that can deliver a really compelling value to some market segment and give you the money that makes it worth it. So instead of putting a lot of stuff together in terms of missions and visions and business plans and product plans and development schedules and 5-year projections, we really are about jumping in. Coming up with a hypothesis of what we think our business could be, but then going out and learning from the market what they need, and then forming our thinking from that. And we may, through that process, and we want to talk to dozens of people, we may through that process either say, oh, I've got a completely different business in mind, or I need to pause because I don't see either a big enough opportunity or my idea is just not powerful enough in terms of the priority of the customer I'm trying to serve. So, as Magali said at the beginning, startups don't fail because they don't have some sort of smart process about building a business. They fail because they don't find customers. It's pretty simple. Almost half of them do, which I have said repeatedly begs the question, why would you go through all the work of building a business if you don't feel good that up front you have a good shot of getting a customer, and hopefully a customer that's going to pay you enough to justify a business. But at the first point, it's like, can I get a customer, right? So as a startup founder, you're not running an organization, sales, marketing, or business development team. You're running a customer development team. Your job is to focus and have the customer pull your product development into the market. When product gets too ahead of customer, you've got a hammer looking for a nail, And that while there isn't really a huge risk of being out front of your customer, you don't want to be so out front in terms of what you're learning that you're unable to build it to keep them interested and to be able to get there before somebody else does. So this is all about customer development. So there's a great definition of this by Steve Blank, who's one of the godfathers of lean thinking. He has the comment on the right. So a company is a business organization that sells a product or service in exchange for revenue and profit. A startup is a temporary organization designed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. That's what you're trying to get done here. Okay, so you need to think differently. And you need to think in terms of going out, learning from customers, learning from users, potentially learning from competitors, suppliers, this ecosystem you're a part of. Go out there and learn and come up with a minimally viable solution that they might look at, get reaction to that, customer validate. And then based on that, pivot and spin in that part of the cycle until you feel like you have something that is sufficient, or they're telling you that you can actually create a customer, and then you build a business. So we're going to focus these 2 days on this customer discovery, customer validation side of the business, primarily on customer discovery. So this is all about exploring just some super fundamental questions like, who is my target customer? Who might that be? What problem does my customer want to solve? What can that problem be solved with? What's the solution they need? Is it really my offering, or is it something completely different in terms of their problem needs to be solved by having more empowerment by their boss to make certain decisions? But who's the target customer? What's their problem? How can it be solved? Why can't they solve it today? How will I find them and acquire them? Who are going to be the earliest customers I can go after? How am I going to make money? Who am I going to compete with? How am I going to beat them? And what's the risk financially the biggest risk financially that I might face? These are the kinds of, and I know this sounds like 101, but we often become so in love with our innovation or idea and beliefs about what problem we're solving that we run out, we build things, we take it to the world, and then we realize, as the 40% do, that they can't get somebody either to believe it's significant enough a value to buy it, or for some other reason can't get them to commit. So, and there's finally, this. What's your biggest risk? These are the things you're going to need to figure out, of course. So what you may learn in doing this, by the way, is that you may find that the customer you intended to serve has a very different problem that's much more interesting to solve than the one you thought. This happens all the time. There was an online dating service which used video for people to connect. Wasn't compelling enough. But what they found out was that having people share videos was very powerful, and people wanted to do that and watch other people's videos. So an online dating service is what the initial version of YouTube became. So you may go out there, talk to folks, and learn, boy, I've got another problem entirely that I can solve for them. You may also learn that you should be solving a problem for a completely different customer. So you have a hypothesis that you want to go serve some radiologist in large metropolitan hospitals, and you realize that your solution is really best for podiatrists who are independent practitioners. So you may be solving a problem for very different customers. As an example, there was a product, a service called The Point. And The Point was created to mobilize people who wanted to take action on causes. So they would say, we want to go down to Olympia and get a petition going on this subject. How many people want to do it? If we reach a certain point, then we all agree we're going to go and march on Olympia next week. Didn't get a lot of traction for that. But what they did learn is, and they did this from discovering that people would pool together to buy a pizza in the building they were in, meaning they ran around and said, hey, I'm going to go collect money and we're going to go buy a pizza and we'll get a better deal if we buy 3 instead of 1. That became Groupon. So there are a whole variety of things you're going to learn. And it's just really important not to get too focused on what you believe is the problem and the solution. That's the simple premise here. And by the way, it's just much easier there. Why would you spend a ton of energy building something if it's a huge guess? Okay, so we're using this lean canvas as a framework to guide you. So as opposed to these traditional business plans, the lean canvas is just a visual hypothesis of the key elements that you want to address if you're going to build a business, versus a traditional business plan, which is a bunch of documents in detail about what you intend to build. So the idea here is to be really good at developing hypotheses for these different elements of the lean business model. So some very bright people said, you know, if you're going to build a business, what are the questions you need to answer? I gave a list of a bunch of them there, and you'll see them show up here. But this is a structured way to do this, to develop hypotheses and then go do homework. So here's the lean canvas. I know many of you already know what this is, but I think it's important that the nuance of it is clear. And the video essentially will tell the story I'm quickly going to tell. There's 2 pieces to it. There's kind of a product side and a market side. And it all starts obviously with the customer segments, which we're going to spend a little time talking about, and the problems, pains, job gains that they are experiencing. You might have multiple customers with very different problems that you might be able to address. And this comes together when you can address those problems for these customers with a compelling value proposition. It's a simple statement that says why you are different and worth buying. This we'll talk about quite a bit is the heart. But that alone will not give you a business. You also need to know what your solution is going to be. You need to know how you're going to reach the customer. Are you going to build a sales team? Are you going to sell this to an intermediary that sells it to the end user? Are you going to do inside sales, outside sales? Are you going to have this solution? You're going to have no sales team at all. You're going to actually embed this inside somebody else's solution, and you'll never be seen. That's called OEM, original equipment manufacturer. Very profitable businesses have been made by never being seen by the light of day by anybody, but they're inside somebody else's solution. So how are you going to get to the market? What are the ways you're going to collect revenue? How will you make money? Are you going to sell a product, a service, both? Will it be a subscription service? Will you license this to someone? You're not going to build a business at all. Your revenue stream is going to be a license stream because you're going to license this to somebody. Similarly, you want to think about the costs involved. Obviously, people are a big part of the business, but if you're going to be a manufacturer or a distributor with inventory costs, you need to ask yourself, what are the key costs of this business? Then you need to ask yourself, what do I look at to indicate that I am on the path of progress? If I were flying, if this is a plane I'm flying, and I have all these dashboard elements in front of me as a pilot, what are the 2 or 3 that are most important to tell me that my business is going in the right direction? And then finally, your unfair advantage. You could do everything here, but an existing player could look at what you've done after you've entered the market and said, love it. I think I'll do that too. Or somebody says, I'm going to do it differently, but I'm going to solve the customer's problem in a better way. And so stepping back, these are the questions you want to be hypothesizing about, guessing about today. And then you go out and you talk to people and you revise them and you hopefully dial in what you think is the problem you're solving, for whom, the solution that you think they are looking for. And now you've done a lot of the homework, which will reduce the odds that you aren't just building a solution, taking it out there, and 40% of the people say no thanks. So that's why we call this lean thinking. We're trying to do a lot of the work before we build a lot of the product. I'm going to give you a quick example. I've used this before. Some of you have seen this. This is the Taco Bell Crunch Wrap. It's brought to you by Taco Bell, who serves this to morning commuters who go flying by their takeout doors. I always thought this was an interesting meal because it combines a bunch of stuff together into one breakfast meal. And I thought to myself, what happens if I would reverse engineer this solution into a lean canvas? What might it look like, to give a sense of the questions they had to answer at Taco Bell HQ? So here we go. Here's the lean canvas for a Taco Bell. And this is, by the way, this is just, guesses, right? But it gives you a sense of these pieces. So we've got the customer segments, which are, and these are guesses, like urban morning commuters. It's very specific, not just commuters or people who eat breakfast outside their house, but urban morning commuters of a certain age who eat takeout a certain amount of time and who are not overly health conscious or diet conscious. The problem that that customer has is that it's really hard to eat a breakfast while you're driving if you do takeout, right? If you have orange juice, hash browns, etc., right? And so traditional egg breakfasts served by fast food have lots of items to deal with. There's a risk of spoilage. You got greasy hands and so forth. So looking at this customer setting, this problem, what's the unique value prop? We bring all your breakfast favorites together into one delicious and no mess meal. So what's other elements that we needed to get answered? What's the solution? Well, it's this packaged breakfast, can be eaten by one hand, no utensil needed, no messy hands. That's what the solution is that we think. Imagine you're pitching this idea to the leadership team at Taco Bell, right? How are we going to get there? Obviously, we're going to go through our existing stores. What's it going to cost? Well, we've had most of the ingredients already in the stores. We'll probably need to have some additional equipment to do the folding, right? Maybe a few more ingredients, but we have to spend a lot on promoting this, because we got to get people to try something new. In terms of money we'll make, well, it'll probably be about $3 to get one of these sandwiches, and we'll make about 50 cents on the dollar, but we'll actually make about 75 cents on the dollar if we can sell them a soft drink with it, because the soft drinks cost us pennies, right? And so now we know what our cost structure might be. We know what we hypothesize we think the revenue kind of might be, the solution. And then we say, well, how are we going to measure success? Well, we'll probably measure success by how well our TV marketing creates demand for people to try it through the drive up. And we'll also keep high tabs on social mecca channels to see whether folks are referring us. So I could do all this, but Burger King could come right out and do the same thing. So what's my unfair advantage? It might be fairly weak. It's hard to know here, but we will be the first company to go do it. So our brand will be known as the ones who created this one-handed breakfast. And so other people will, if they do it, are going to look like copycats. But perhaps the more realistic unfair advantage is that we'll have put all this equipment in these stores and allows us to go up and come up with new configurations, lunch or dinner one-handed configurations. And that might allow us to stay ahead of the competition. That was just a really brief summary of the lean canvases applied to a Taco Bell sandwich. Okay, this is the longest, by the way, lecture I'm giving you, because now what we're going to want to do is get you in your breakout rooms, and we want you to start working on that lean canvas. There's two ways you can do this. The first and preferred way to do this is to go into innovation within, and the goal here is to have at least just take one target customer. We'll do some work after this to identify lots of potential target customers. Just pick one target customer you have for your solution and identify what you think are the problems they're experiencing, a couple descriptions of the elements of your solution, and why it's difficult for your solution to be copied or bought. Now, there is in the chat a link to the PowerPoint exercise templates. If you can, however, I'm going to change my screen here. I would strongly encourage you, and let's see here, I have on my screen canvas for the Taco Bell Crunch Wrap. But the idea here is just go in here and pick one customer segment, add it in here, right? And then go across here and just add what you think the problem is of that customer, right? And by the way, once you start adding these problems, you can link them to here. So you'll see on your version a little bracelet, and you can link them over here. But what I'd like you to do is to go in here, at least identify one customer segment. We're going to have the next exercise is to really go deep on this part, but identify one customer segment, identify their problem, what the solution is, what's an unfair advantage. And if you have a few more minutes, great, start filling out other elements of the canvas. And we'll do this for about 10, 15 minutes, and then we will bring you back. I'm going to stop sharing. Welcome back, everybody. So a few comments. First, for some of you, this exercise was very basic because you've already been working on your lean canvas. For others, this was the first time you've ever really played with a lean canvas. So we've got a whole range of experiences here. Second comment is this tool has quite a few layers to its use. And I just wanted to remind you that you should see a menu item for the Information Hub. And I would encourage you to click on that and look at it. And you'll see 3 tabs. You'll see the Cohort Information Hub, the Team Information Hub, and that's for you to use. Those are the 2 that you use. As a reminder, this tool does not host any documents. This tool links to documents that you might store in a Google Drive or elsewhere. And so if you want to use the Team Information Hub to store documents that you have somewhere else that everybody should be looking at, just post them somewhere else and create a link by adding it, give the link a name, and link to that document. Similarly, we've created a number of documents here for you. Information on the Zoom links and homework to get on the sessions, a demographic survey we're going to ask you to do. We kept the team orientation recording and slides that we did last week. We have a whole set of links for kind of getting up to speed on this tool. And we even created a quick start guide here, which is the second tab. And so what we did is we grabbed from the Innovation Within folks from their website, kind of the fundamental things you'd want to probably learn and put them in a quick start guide. But we've also made links here. The workshop exercise templates can be found here. We also added some additional links to some good customer discovery resources. And then Magali has put in the information here should you apply for this grant money as a result of going through this program. So we just want to let you know that there's stuff up here that is helpful. There is also a set of videos that you can use, that you can take advantage of. And just a whole variety, customer discovery best practices, telling your story. So for each part of the Lean Canvas, there are videos with tips and explanations. So just want to encourage you to use that so that you can really take advantage of this tool, which is pretty powerful. All right, we'll continue to move on. You've had now a chance to take kind of a first look at a customer segment and to get a feel for the Lean Canvas. Let me share my full presentation screen. We'll continue going forward. The next step is to, and I'm going to take a break after this next step, is to really focus in on this customer segment you're going to serve. So let's talk about that for a minute. A segment is a set of customers who share common characteristics, right? So those characteristics could be a mix of a number of things. It could be demographic characteristics, their age, their gender, their income, their ethnicity, etc. It could be what's called psychographic characteristics, their personality traits, the things they value, certain attitudes or interests they have. They could be behavioral traits, how they buy, how they spend. It could be geographic traits, where they live, the city, the country, are they urban or rural? The idea here is that you want to try to get your segmentation to be as specific as possible so that you are getting in your zone of targeting a set of like-minded potential customers. So for example, kite surfers is a very broad way of thinking about a segment. Inside the kite surfer segment, there are professionals, there are average, and there are prospective people who are thinking about kite surfing. Very different probable, I'm going to go back here, very probable different ages, purchasing habits, perhaps personality traits, maybe not. And maybe there's even some geographic attributes. But the point is, the professional surfer is likely really concerned mostly about performance, less concerned about cost. The average is sensitive to performance and cost, while the prospective is probably very focused on cost sensitivity and making sure that this is easy to learn, this kiteboarding. So if you're the manufacturer of a kiteboarding, or you're going to make a business to go into this market, you probably want to pick who you want to go after, because you likely can't go over after all three with the same solution. And in fact, if you think about what we talked about a moment ago, the difference between a startup and a company already sells to one of these segments and seeks to grow by perhaps going downstream or going upstream, right? A startup has to figure out where they see the weakness and the opportunity and be very specific about that. So customers are people. They're not buildings or institutions. So when you look at that right side of the lean canvas and you say, who are my customers? You're not quite sure yet, perhaps. Maybe you've done interviews and you're dialing that in. Maybe you're just new to the whole interview process. Well, you're probably saying to yourself, well, my customers are radiologists. Well, can you get more specific? Can you say radiologists in clinics or hospitals of this size, in these kinds of locations? The idea is, can you get as clear as possible as to the characteristics of these target segments that might be your opportunity? Today, I would be very surprised if you could dial that in. And that's one of the reasons why you could do customer discovery, is so that you can dial in the specifications of that customer segment. The idea over time is to develop what are called personas. These personas you'll have for the buyer, for the user, for other players, but primarily the buyer and the user. If you're selling an iPhone, that's one and the same people. If you're selling to business and you're selling to a hospital, the buyer may not be the same as the user. But the idea is, you look at some of the characteristics of a persona. Is it, it describes who they are in very demographic terms, but it describes what their challenges are, what their values and their goals are, who influences them, how do they make decisions. The more you can dial this in, the better, right? So why do you do this? It makes it really clear whether you got a big enough opportunity. It helps focus what you're building on a real clear target. It helps you message and generate leads to that, because you're really smart and efficient and clear, right? And it increases the odds you're going to be differentiated from somebody else. So customer segmentation is a really, really important thing to do. And right now you may have it at a very high level, and that is perfectly fine. But the degree you can hone that in, the better. And then of course, because you're scrappy, you don't have a lot of money, and you're trying to get into the market first, you're jumping out of a boat into the water, and you're trying to get to dry land as fast as possible and get up on the beach with your new business. You want to get dry quickly, and which means you got to find the people who have the most pain or who have the most to gain. And what you're looking at is the traditional technology adoption curve, right? The innovators who grab everything right off the bat, the early adopters who will take what's minimally required to satisfy them. And then you've got this chasm to get over to get to a big chunk of the market, which is called the early majority. So the people who sleep outside the Apple store are the innovators. The friends of theirs who don't do that, but the next day or two look at what they bought and then go out and buy it, are the early adopters. You want to try to figure out who the innovators and early adopters are in that customer segment. That's why when you look at the lean canvas, you see a list of customer segments, and at the bottom of that thing, it says early adopters. Okay, hopefully this all makes sense. So we want to focus there initially. because we want to get dry. We want to get on the beach. We want to get our team together, and then we want to go inland and expand and try to really dominate a customer segment. So what we want to do is we're going to send you right back out again, and we'll give you 5, maybe 10 minutes. Then we'll have you come back. We'll take a break. But we really want you to brainstorm all the potential customer segments you think potentially you have a solution for, and a couple thoughts on who might be the earliest adopter. And then ask yourself, what are the 1 or 2 you really want to focus on for the next 6 weeks to go learn about? So let me see if there's any questions here. I'm going to pop up my chat screen if there's any questions. Let's see here. Can you have more than 1 early adopter? Absolutely. Absolutely. So Karen, let's send them out, and a team, just focus on brainstorming that side of the lean canvas. Or if you've already built out your lean canvas, you're feeling really good, really look at those customer segments and ask yourself, how far have I dialed in their personas? And can I do more to dial it in even more effectively? Well, let's do that.
Okay, I'm going to send everyone away. Here we go.
Okay, everybody, we'll continue moving forward. Let me get my screen in the situation that it needs to be. So what we're going to go do now is we're going to move quite quickly through a number of exercises to start honing in on what we hope will be our theory about the value we can deliver some customer segment. So what we've done first is to say, here's all the questions you're over time going to want to figure out. It starts with the customer you're going to go serve. Let's brainstorm some customers you potentially could serve and who might be the earliest adopter. So now what we want to do is say, okay, if I'm going to go serve that customer segment, that particular customer segment, what do I need to know about the world they're in? And that's called a customer ecosystem. And so when you look at let me say that when you sell a business to consumer product like an iPhone, it's pretty clear who that target customer is, and it's not a not very complex ecosystem. I mean, there are competitors clearly that you're competing against, but when you, however, are doing a business-to-business sale, when you're selling to a business, it's a much more complex environment. So, for example, if you're selling a medical product, a medical device, or a software product or service into a business, you have to take into account all the different players that might be involved. There is someone who uses your product. There's someone who buys the product. That buyer may be the same as the person who pays for it, or it could be their boss who actually pays for it out of their budget. There could be, there are likely influencers and saboteurs in that environment. There are perhaps regulatory issues that you have to grapple with. And in fact, there is a whole boot camp in the WeReach program around the regulatory environment. The point here is, when you think about this customer segment you want to serve, what is the ecosystem they're a part of? Who's going to use it? Who might buy it? Who might pay for it? Who might sabotage? Who might be an advocate for you? And during your customer discovery work over time, you're going to learn this. What we want to do now is to see what theories you have about what that might look like. Let me give you an example. So, of course, there's competitors. If I'm selling ultrasound equipment, right, there is a user of the ultrasound equipment. It's the technician at the clinic or at the hospital. There is someone who actually is going to buy that equipment. It's not the technician, it's the hospital administrator that's going to pay for the thing, right? But actually, it's going to buy it. Who's going to pay for it? Well, the insurance company hopefully is going to reimburse the hospital every time they use that ultrasound. So if I'm selling this ultrasound equipment, I got to make sure the technician is supportive of it. The person who's going to buy it is supportive of it. The insurance company is willing to pay transactional fees for it. Of course, that all has to assume that the radiologist, who is going to actually going to be the department leader who decides that equipment is going to come in or out of their department, recommends that to the administrator of the hospital that we should go buy it. So there's the user, the buyer, the person who pays it, someone who recommends it. Then on the other side of it is we got the patient who actually experiences this thing. They go in and they get the ultrasound. What's it going to be like for them? The primary care physician is the one who actually likely refers the patient to go get an ultrasound treatment. So the point of all this is there's a lot of players in many B2B sales. And so what I would like you to do is we're going to throw you in your breakout rooms, and I'd like you to pick that customer segment you're particularly interested in understanding over the next 6 weeks. And if you're not sure and you've got a couple of them that you want to go investigate, that's fine. But for either of those, there is a PowerPoint template. Remember, we have this booklet and we have the template, and we've sent a link in the chat box to that PowerPoint template. Would like you to go fill out an ecosystem worksheet for your primary customer segment you want to pursue. Okay? Write the segment out and then describe who uses it, who buys it, who pays for it, who influences it, who might be a saboteur, who might you compete against, and if there's any regulatory issues involved. We're going to do this very quickly because I want to go through a number of exercises. Again, what we're trying to do today is not for you to solve your business, your business ideation. It's to understand these tools and the framework, and you'll work on this in the coming weeks. Okay, Karen, why don't you send them off?
Everyone, I just reposted the exercise template in the chat, so feel free to grab it if you don't have it.
We'll do this one very quickly. You got about 5 to 7 minutes to do this one.
Okay, I'm moving everyone now.
Hold on 1 second. We have a question about saboteurs. Ken, would you give an example about saboteurs?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example of somebody who we thought was the customer and ended up being the saboteur. I worked with a company that had a web solution for digital marketing people inside a business. That means we had a solution to provide me as a user of a website with quick answers to my common questions. Our customer was the digital marketing person inside the business. So we went to them and we said, hey, we can give you the ability to have lots of quick answers to questions that customers have. All you have to do is put this interface in. And they said, not only no, but heck no. And in fact, don't you talk to anybody inside my business because I don't want you touching my baby, the website. So a saboteur is someone who either is generally someone whose vested interests are at risk by you putting in this solution. They may be threatened by it, and so they will potentially try to sabotage it. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. We're going to break away.
We're talking about value propositions. I want to show you something that just so you're aware of on this tool. 2 things. Number 1 is you can chat with each other and with your mentor. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little chat, hide chat. If you click on that, you'll see there are 3 kinds of chat here, right? Team chat is only visible to the team members. And by the way, you can bring up actually 2 instances of it. So you can be multiple chatting with several of you on the team if you want. This is for instructor feedback. This is where the instructor has a chance to chat with the team, right? So the instructors or mentors, I should say, will use the instructor feedback chat channel if you want to talk to them or leave comments. Of course, you can leave comments on any element of this lean canvas. You'll see the little add view comment. So that's team chat, instructor, and then peer feedback allows you to go into other people's lean canvas and to make comments on theirs if you would like. So I just wanted to make sure you saw that. The other thing that I wanted you to show, and you can toggle chat off by just hitting that. The other thing is if you hit this little wheel in the upper right-hand corner, you'll notice that this is the full lean canvas. There's something called the skinny canvas. And if you click on that, it reduces all of the canvas down to just customer segments, problem, value proposition. And honestly, this is where you're going to do most of your work. So if you want to have a kind of a shorter or more abbreviated workspace to work, you can toggle on and off what's called the skinny canvas. Okay, just wanted to show that to you. All right, let's continue on. Let me just share my canvas here, my PowerPoint, and we'll continue on. Okay, so what we basically said is we've looked at this ecosystem, and now we got to figure out who we're going to talk to and really get empathetic about what their life is like every day, so we can learn what problem we're going to solve for them, what benefit we're going to give them. And so if there's any questions on the Lean Canvas, please don't hesitate to ask them now before we move on. I see the comment about breakout sessions feeling a bit brief, the last one. The challenge we have, and you guys will all meet separately from this, is we want to get a lot of information and frameworks in your mind. We'll do the best we can to give you time to do that, but some of these may feel a little short, and for that we apologize, right? So, all right, developing a compelling value proposition. So at the core of what you're doing is obviously that middle part of the Lean Canvas. You're trying to understand a customer, you're trying to figure out how to solve their problem, and you're trying to come up with a solution that they say, I got to have this, and I'm going to go buy this, right? And so the value proposition is where your solution comes together with understanding your customers' challenges, right? And so that's where we're trying to get. We're basically trying to get the person to say, I want to use this solution. So here's how you go think about that. Your role is to go out and understand the jobs, the pains, the gains your customer is trying to address. The job is the things your customers are trying to get done that lead them to purchase your product or services, in terms of their day-to-day job. The pains are obviously the things that frustrate them, and the gains are the things that they would love to have. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up with pain relievers, gain creators, and job enhancers. Where those meet is the value proposition, right? So that's the goal of what you're trying to have happen. The value proposition is where it comes together, right? So what we're going to do is have you work a bit on hypothesizing what you think. You've picked a customer segment you're going to go talk to. You're going to develop some hypotheses about what their job frustrations are, what their gains they're looking for, what their pains are. And you're really going to go out and just learn that. You're not going to go out and say, I've invented this really cool thing. What do you think? You're going to go out and say, tell me about your life. What's your most challenging part of the day? Why? You're going to ask a lot of open-ended questions so you really understand. It's just turning on your empathy machine to really understand them. So one way to do this is to hypothesize each element of this. So you want to generate a set of assumptions about the jobs your customer is trying to get done. That can be a task they're trying to perform, a problem they're trying to solve, a need they're trying to fill. And the way you do that is just fill in the blanks. The ex-customer is trying to get some job done because of some assumption. Similarly, so the amateur kiteboarder is trying to learn the basics of the sport quickly because they don't want to purchase a kiteboard that'll take them many months to learn. That's the customer, the kiteboarder, is trying to learn the basics of the sport quickly. That's the particular job that they want to get done, right? And the assumption is they want to do that, and they want to get it done quickly because they don't want to purchase a kiteboard if it's going to take them a long time to learn it. That is an example of a hypothesis about a customer segment's job they're trying to get done. Similarly, let's talk about the pains. That's a set of assumptions you have about the negative emotions, extra costs people are having, bad situations they're experiencing, risks that they're experiencing while they get their job done. So thinking about the kiteboarder again, what might be a pain that they're trying to solve? The amateur kiteboarder does not want to feel embarrassed as they learn the sport because the opinion of family and friends is important to them. So if you're selling to the amateur kiteboarder, you don't want it to be too hard to learn, too complex. You want to minimize their embarrassment. So the feature that you might have in your kiteboard might not be the board at all. It might be the information you give them as they are about to go learn it, which says, don't worry, you're going to fall off this board 50 times. That's completely normal. And everybody who's ever done kiteboarding falls off their board 50 times. So you might want to let everybody know that when you go out there, prepare to be fallen off 50 times. The point is, you're trying to understand and hypothesize about the customer's pains, right? And to do that, you kind of fill out the blanks to help your thinking. Finally, kind of the customer's gains. What do they want? These are assumptions you have about what the customer desires, like certain utility that that they want to get served, looking good to their boss, feeling good about their day, sleeping well at night, saving money, whatever it is. What's a gain your customer would like? In the case of the kiteboarder, here's an example. The amateur kiteboarder needs to transport a kiteboard on their sedan vehicle. They'd love to be able to walk in and go, oh, I can put that on my car, right? I don't have to get an SUV. So the amateur kiteboarder needs to transport a kite on their sedan vehicle. That's the gain they'd love to have because they don't own a sport utility vehicle, right? This is almost like a job, right? The point is you want to hypothesize about the job, the pain, and the gain that your customers are experiencing. And so we created a PowerPoint template for this, right? So we'd like you to go in and we'd like you to hypothesize a couple jobs you think this customer is trying to get done that you can solve with your solution. Perhaps a couple pains they're experiencing that you can address with your solution. Perhaps some gains they'd love to have that you can address. Pick a few of those for that segment. You've listed a bunch of them, the ones you want to go talk to. Because essentially, you're going to go out and talk to folks now, and you're really trying to, this is the heart, you're trying to understand their experience. So grab that PowerPoint with the goal that what you're going to try to do is put some of them up into this box. You're going to try to link that customer segment you're interested in talking to with the jobs, pains, and gains that you believe they have. So any questions about this before we go out? Hopefully it was clear. Just a simple framework for phrasing your hypothesis about what this customer's life is like. And you're going to do a lot of these interviews where you're just going to have them talk and tell stories. And in fact, stories are super powerful when you talk to folks. And I understand that you have various customer segments you might be able to serve. And in those customer segments, the ecosystems could be simple or complex. Take this a step at a time. If you have a fairly clearly defined customer set you will likely serve, then you're going to spend a lot of your energies in the next coming weeks probably going very deep on that one. If you're still early on and you're not sure which customer segment to select, you may spend your time investigating them, but don't pick 6 because you're not going to be able to draw any good conclusions. Pick a couple to go deep on over the coming weeks, because one of the dangers of doing this work of talking to folks is, aside from reinforcing your own biases, is coming to conclusions too quickly. I personally experienced that where we heard yes about a dozen times and we made a bunch of decisions based on that, and we should have heard both yes and no in a complement of 100 interviews. So that's the caution I would have. But hopefully what we're doing here makes sense, which is we're trying to be clever in not getting too fast in developing some sort of solution for a hypothetical audience we think wants it, but instead going out, trying to figure out what customer segment, what problem, challenges, gains they want. And out of that, we build some sort of theory about a compelling value proposition. And that's where we're going next, which is a value proposition is a really succinct statement that describes how your product or service improves their lives, that's quantifiable with real benefits, and it's different from the competition. And I always like to say that not only is it good for them and they love it, and they have clear benefits, and they're willing to pay for it, obviously, but it's better than the competition or them doing nothing. And by that, I mean, a lot of times you go and bring something to you learn about a problem a customer has, but when you ask them to compare that problem with all the other problems they have, or if you say to them, would you spend money on this? You'll hear an answer something like, well, you know, I got bigger fish to fry, or I'm going to worry about that later. So your competition is not just known players in the market who you might be going head to head against. Your competition for getting a customer might be them doing nothing because it doesn't rise to be significant enough. So what does a value proposition statement look like? Well, just like we did this fill in the blanks to figure out how we hypothesize about jobs, pains, and gains, we got a nice little fill in the blank here about a value proposition. And here's how it works. It's very simple. It's a fill in the blank. It says our product or service helps some customer segment who want to get some job done. We help them do that by reducing or avoiding some pain and increasing or enabling some gain, unlike some other competitor they could choose, or unlike doing nothing, right? And so if you can fill this out, you've got the version 1.0 hypothesis of what you're trying to deliver to the market. So you identified a customer segment, you're going out and you're going to do a lot of interviewing, and out of that, you're going to come up with a theory about a customer value proposition. And it's not too early to come up with a hypothesis if you have one today. If you don't have one, that's okay. Take a guess, because everything you're doing right now, honestly, is largely guesses, unless you've done a bunch of customer discovery work. So let me share an example. Those of you who grew up or lived some time in your life in cold climates recognize this. This is some stuff you squirt on your windshield when your windshields get iced over. It's a de-icer. For those of us who don't experience this a lot, we probably just have a scraper in the glove compartment or on the side of our door. So when it gets cold and icy, we scrape it off. But this is a liquid that you spray on, and it even has an integrated scraper on the top of it. So what might a value proposition for this scraper look like? This is just an example, right? This isn't the one that they use, for all I know. But how's this? Our ice-free windshield spray helps drivers in cold climates, that's the segment, who want to quickly and easily get their windshields clear. That's the job they're trying to get done. We help them do that, quickly and easily get their windshield clear, by reducing the time they spend out in the cold, reducing the pain they experience, and by improving their visibility when driving. That's the gain we give them. Unlike ice scrapers, which is other options they have. So our ice-free windshield spray helps drivers in cold climates who want to get a job done quickly and easily get their windshields clear by reducing the time they spend out in the cold and by improving their visibility when driving, unlike ice scrapers. So what we want you to do is, again, today is not to solve all these questions. Today is about getting you this framework in your mind, thinking about customer segmentation, thinking about jobs, pains, and gains, thinking about this, what is a value prop? And over time, you will work on this thing. But we want you to get the framework and to come up with the kind of guess as it is today. So what we want to do is there is a PowerPoint template for this, where you're going to just fill this out. And then what we want you to do is stick it in this part of Innovation Within. So are there any questions on this one? If not, and I'm looking at the chat, go ahead and throw in a question in there if you have one. If not, what we'll do is Karen will send them off. And why don't you spend 5 minutes to 10 minutes working on a guess value proposition. And we'll have a couple of you maybe describe their value props for the whole crew. We're ready to go.
I am sending people.
So what you want to do, it's very easy to explain a business to someone somewhat in about 60 to 90 seconds. It gets harder when you do 30 seconds, and it's even harder when you come up with 3 to 5. But that's what you'll be doing over time. So this value props are kind of a good tool to say, look, who am I serving? What's the job I'm helping them get done? Like, what's the pain I'm relieving or the gain I'm giving them? And why am I different from some other option they have, which includes doing nothing? And so I think that's where you're going with all this. We're trying to work in this effort to go out and do customer discovery to really hone in that piece of it. The other parts of the lean canvas, the channel you're going to use, the cost structure, the revenue streams, all that other stuff, that will come if you can dial in the value prop. But if you don't have a value prop, it doesn't matter what channel you're going to use to get to market or what your key metrics are or whatever, right? So that's why this is the heart. Well done, all of you. Really impressed.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do in the time we have remaining is just a couple things. One is I'm going to turn this over to Magali, because Magali is going to ask that you do just a very quick demographic survey. And then when she's done, what we're going to do is we're going to put you back and we're just going to let you loose to go talk to each other and to maybe work on your lean canvas. But the goal is when you're done, when we go in the session tomorrow, we're going to assume your canvas is you're starting on it. And we're going to focus on how you go do interviews, how you go find people, how you have a good conversation, how you get meaning from what you got in that conversation. So tomorrow's all about what's called customer discovery. So Magali, can I turn it back to you and then you throw it back to me? So let's bring this all together and then we'll send you off to do one last thing and use the time as you want to after you do that one last thing. We basically said today that what you're trying to do with this lean thinking is to dive in, to just dive in and go learn and build to what you learn. Now, there's something interesting here that I just want to pause, and that is you're building something which both addresses things you hear from your customers, the stuff they need, but you're also building things they don't realize they could even have. So the art here is mixing what you know is possible, which they may not know is possible, with the things they are asking for. And it's a bit of both. You don't just build what they say they need. You build what they need plus what you think is possible, but confirm that they would like to have. So you jump in. And it's this process of customer discovery, customer validation. Customer discovery is learning and being empathetic, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And then kind of creating a minimal version, getting it, seeing if you can get validation for that. And from there, you go to customer creation and you build a business. Right now, you have a lot of guesses, and that's just fine. Guesses at least give you a starting point for you to go do that work to learn. If you don't have guesses, that's okay too. Just go learn to fill out these pieces that you are just beginning to explore. Your goal is to try to get groups of people that you could serve called customer segments or prospect segments, so that you can efficiently target what you can smartly build for their needs, that you can hopefully find something that is sizable. That sizable market may be a little bit later. The early market, though, is the one you want to focus on, the one who feels the needs the greatest. But that way you are building smartly, you're communicating in a focused way, you're differentiating yourself from other options out there. And this segment is a mix of characteristics, demographic, psychographic, behavioral, and geographic. And when you go start focusing on one of these segments, you got to be aware of the world they live in, because you're entering that world and there are potential saboteurs in that world. There are potential approvers, buyers, so forth. And so getting to know that world is super important. And that at the core, what you're trying to do is really observe and then design some really compelling value proposition. And you work on that until you can dial that in. And once you do that, you are in the mode of now getting potential customers.